20 seconds.
This is a reminder that self-care doesn't really mean removing your body hair, but taking care of it. Oil, some lotion, falling in love with it, and realizing how...
Girl, what the...
Frick! As of course, yep, that is Clint's girlfriend, and he usually likes furries, and that's the closest thing to it. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name is Luke Radowski here of thebestpoliticalshow.com, and we are going to be going live for the next 2 hours discussing all the latest and craziest news developing right now. As of course, there's a lot of very important things to talk about, especially when it comes to online censorship, as there's even more shocking news and chilling text messages highlighting more important questions about what in the world happened during the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, as Biden is looking to completely change the U.S. Supreme Court, as there's a lot of controversy surrounding J.D. Vance and the Venezuelan elections, which we are going to be talking about in depth with our esteemed guests and panelists here who are going to be joining us for this specific conversation, as we will ask you guys to please share this broadcast with your friends and family members. YouTube has been doing a lot of underhanded things. We are getting professional help in order to make sure that we're able to reach as many people as we can. And one of the reasons why we are still here is mainly because of you guys sharing this video, just copying the URL, giving it out to random people on the internet. And that truly makes the biggest difference, as of course we also will be taking callers in about an hour and a half from now. You could be that caller just by simply signing up to lukeunfiltered.com, where of course you get a lot of really incredible offers of value and a special group chat that I am in right now, as of course we will be going to callers in a little bit. That could be you, unfiltered in a totally organic way, all through lukeunfiltered.com. Also, check out mysuperchat.com, a platform that allows your super chats to actually show up on screen and only charges us a 3% service charge over, of course, the 30% YouTube service charge that, of course, goes along with that. Joining us for today's conversation is Clarkson Lawson. Clarkson, for the people who don't know you, who are you and how would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Luke. So, like you said, my name's Clarkson. I make content mostly on TikTok as well as Instagram. I just got started on my YouTube game, so it's a totally different ball game with YouTube. But trying to get that going. I talk a lot about social issues, race, gender, sexuality, things of that nature, and then I sprinkle in some politics here and there. So I'm excited to talk about the actual nit and gritty of what's going on in the world today.
Yeah, a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world right now. There's a lot of stuff surrounding the Olympics that also you got in trouble for talking about. We're going to save that for the last topic of discussion, because I think it'll be an interesting one, and we always appreciate kind of conversations that we wouldn't normally have. So we appreciate people coming from different kind of opinions, like Ian Crossland, a crazy madman who just hit the town of Miami. I don't know if Miami's ready for you, but I know you're ready for Miami yourself.
Never ready for me.
I gotta say, I'm not gonna be on the show, and I'm actually swapping out for our other guest,
Esteban.
Yeah, Esteban, welcome. But I want to say before I go, I just stirred up some drama on X about this recent tweet Elon Musk put out, this Kamala Harris deepfake, and it was marked parody in the comment above the video, but in the video there's no watermark saying this is a parody. And Gavin Newsom's like, we need to make this illegal. So I think it's very important that deepfake videos are marked with a watermark persistently on every frame of the video that it is a deepfake, because the line between impersonation and parody are getting closer and closer. So please debate that tonight and have fun with that. But I'm going to be stepping out, and I wanted to introduce our other guest here.
Esteban is going to be here talking about all the latest stuff. Ian is going to be on tomorrow and probably Wednesday with us, because we're going to have more shows happening 6 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday and Wednesday, as Esteban, who also is a previous guest here, came in last minute, because we called him last minute, especially with everything happening in Venezuela. Esteban, for the people who don't know who you are, who are you and how would you introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Esteban Hernandez, as you mentioned. I'm the editor-in-chief of news outlet in Spanish. We cover mostly politics and also mostly Latin America, although we talk about other places as well. And I'm from Venezuela. So, I know a little bit about what's going on right now.
Yeah, not a lot of good news coming from Venezuela. We're going to have to save it for the next platform that we're on because YouTube really doesn't like us talking about, the fortifying of elections that happens so much. Clint, how are you with your hairy girlfriend?
I'm good, man. She keeps me warm at night, and that's really all that matters, Luke. So I appreciate it if you don't judge me so much.
You have the AC on extra high with her.
That's right. She keeps the bed smoking hot. Anyways, at Liberty Lockbot on X, just hit 20K on YouTube.
I can imagine the friction that happens there. It must be something else.
I don't want to think about it. I have to go home to it, Luke. Don't make me think about it while I'm at work. Anyways, Liberty Lockdown is the show. Just hit 20K. Thank you guys for helping get me over the hump. 100 shows, 20,000 subscribers. I like it a lot. Also, do Tower Gang. Never ever watched that. And follow me on, I don't know. Whatever. Liberty Lockdown. Clint Russell.
Yeah. Steph's in the house. She pledged to, of course, speak throughout the entire duration of this entire show, nonstop. Thank you, Steph, for
I'm not
doing
going to talk
that
it all
for us.
today. It's all you,
Appreciate
Steph.
that. Yep, me too.
All right, I'm going to talk about Clint and how amazing everyone is getting to know you after being posted on Fox News with Elon Musk. Yeah,
right.
I see that. He's getting real excited, so everybody go support him over there.
It wasn't him. It was a tweet. They got his tweet.
Yeah, he
It was a
loves
tweet,
it.
okay?
I
Still
feel
pretty
it.
cool.
I can feel it. He thinks he's so cool now. Don't forget the little ones, okay? Like this one that has very little friends on X and on Instagram.
They're not friends. Trust me.
They're followers and friends. They DM me, and my DMs are still open.
Yes, Stephanie's DMs. Open. Take that as you will. As of course, in related fortifying election news, again, I think it's fair to say that a lot of things on social media are not what they purport to be, as there's a lot of people today reporting a lot of underhanded behavior from the major institutions like Google and Facebook when it comes to doing things that people are saying is absolutely not fair. As this morning, we got the breaking news that actual photos of the Donald Trump assassination attempt were actually being blocked on Facebook and Meta, specifically highlighting, quote, altered photos and videos. So this happened as it was independently verified by fact checkers, allegedly saying that this kind of very iconic, very kind of historic photo was not real at all. It was fake. It was altered on a lot of the social media platforms controlled by Mark Zuckerberg, as Facebook actually officially just admitted that, we made a coinkydink. We made a mistake here. It was accidentally censored, even though it's one of the most historic, iconic photos in modern political history. Again, him pumping that fist after literally getting shot at. Most people, when they get shot at, they run. They pee themselves. They poop themselves. They cry. They run away. Trump decided to pump his fists in kind of defiance to the larger attacks against his life, something that, of course, is a major rallying call, and something that, in my opinion, is not surprising that these big tech companies that have been aligned against him have been trying to, of course, downplay or limit in the algorithm in order to, of course, decrease its larger significance. That's my opinion. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think it's very convenient that this photo got just mistakenly censored, because even when I was on TikTok, it was like the most liberal creators were making videos, and they were like, I'm not going to lie, this picture is really good. Like, I can't say that this picture is not making me want to change my mind. So that picture is powerful.
As the kids say, that picture goes hard.
Yeah, it goes hard, right. So, I mean, there's so many eyes on what gets censored and what doesn't. I don't believe that anything that's censored is a mistake. That's very hard for me to believe.
Well, I actually made a lengthy post about this yesterday before this even happened, and what inspired me to do so was that I was preparing an episode of Liberty Lockdown, and I was trying to search for additional information about the attack. And I realized that when I entered in Donald Trump's name, it would come up like if you put in Donald T, it was still not coming up with Trump. And then I put in attack on Donald, and then it didn't fill his name. It would come up with other presidents. It would come up with Truman and stuff like that. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is obvious algo suppression. They're memory holing the most serious political attack on a political figure. in years and years, and definitely the most iconic moment in modern American political history. But then I started to reflect on it, and I was like, wait a second. This is the first time that they actually carried a Trump rally live since J6. This is not an exaggeration. Like that was not happening. So they basically and if they had him like even talking about what happened on J6, you would have like the Rachel Maddows of the world cut into his live talk and say, we're gonna cut away now because we cannot allow our audience to hear this mis and disinformation, blah blah blah. So they gave him zero coverage, and then that day everyone's there covering him, including the BBC of all news stations. And then ever since then, because it failed, he is once again in blackout mode, algorithmic blackout mode. I think that there needs to be serious questions asked as to why this is happening, and why that one day was the one day that he was actually seeing the light of day.
Yeah, we have other articles from Fox Business highlighting people's frustrations when they were trying to, Google, find out what was going on here. As of course, if you typed in assassination attempt on, what would pop up on Google was Reagan, Truman, Ronald Reagan, General Ford, Andrew Johnson, FDR, Seward. Who the hell's Seward? I have no idea who that even is in the larger kind of historical context here, but this is going along the same lines of what we saw from the corporate media that right after that event was trying to obfuscate it by saying that there was a loud noise. There was the appearance of Trump falling and tripping, he totally fell.
He fell and
Secret
started
Service
bleeding from his ear.
Yes,
It was a piece of glass. That's what they said.
Yes. It was a big coinkydink. He tripped and fell on his shoelaces. Who would have thought? I'm exaggerating that last bit, but that was the kind of news coverage that we saw right after this major political event that we were very lucky didn't succeed, because if it did, the country would be totally different.
And let's add to that too, that after J6 you have literally years, ladies and gentlemen, of them talking about political violence and the radicalization of Trump supporters and MAGA and yada yada yada. After this event, the most serious political violent attack that we've seen in my lifetime, for real. There's no conversation about political violence. Like you get a little, like for a couple days, they were like, let's turn down the temperature. But if it had been on Barack Obama, had it been on Joe Biden, do you think that would have been the conversation? Or do you think that there would have been Patriot Act 2.0 and years of investigations and constant, nonstop talk about how the right wing is radicalized and dangerous? We all know the answer.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and I want to add something to that, because there is this part of the rhetoric. They always say, for example, if Donald Trump says, "Oh, I don't like Luke," "Oh, you're telling people to kill him," or something like that. Prior to this assassination attempt, we saw Democrats saying he's a Nazi. Oh, Joe Biden should drown him because now he has presidential immunity.
That's right.
I mean, there is a weight to rhetoric, especially when you hold a position of power. So if you're able to accuse somebody of that, then why don't you also take responsibility for your own words? To me, it's just hypocritical. It doesn't surprise me. I know how the left is. They're the same all over the world. But I mean, it's something that needs to be discussed and pointed out.
Well, they called it stochastic terrorism.
Yep.
For years they were saying that about Trump's rhetoric, but then the very same incredibly inflammatory rhetoric that they used against not just Trump but his entire supporter base. Which, by the way, it wasn't just Trump that was attacked. There was an American citizen that was actually
that's
killed.
true. Yeah,
And they don't care at all.
That lost his life.
That is true. And also, there is another hypocritical again point made by those who are now condemning, the violence of Donald Trump. They call him Hitler, right? Oh, he's literally Hitler. I'd be happy if somebody tries to kill literally Hitler. For example, we're going to be talking about Venezuela a little bit, in a few minutes, right? I'm never going to be sad if somebody tries to do that on Maduro, for example. I'm not hypocritical about that because I know who he is. He's a criminal. So if you're saying that this guy is Hitler, you should be happy about it. You shouldn't be saying, oh, this is not the way that it is. So either he's Hitler or he's not.
Yeah, there's some troubling snap polls that came out with the left's reaction to this, and it's kind of horrifying, especially on the pathway that we have been on. But again, they call what he does stochastic terrorism when their rhetoric is more hyperbolic, more dangerous than ever. They're saying he's a threat to our democracy. He needs to be stopped. And I would say there's a case and argument to make here that all the authoritative sources that the social media algorithms have promoted radicalized a crap ton of individuals. And even if you don't look into the kind of conspiracy aspect of what happened here, there's an element of people being radicalized by the corporate media to commit a lot of these violent actions, which are usually condoned or promoted by the left-wing kind of establishment institutions, just like Black Lives Matter was. That was a movement that was mostly peaceful but fiery. that was a movement that 36 plus people lost their lives, that entire communities and neighborhoods were burned down in, and it was still something that was a major rallying call for a lot of the most popular leftist kind of institutions out there. So I think we're reaching a point where people are being brainwashed in very dangerous ways, and they're being put and pinned to the extremes on the political cycle, to the point where it's truly not going to be safe to be political at all. And it's becoming more weaponized.
And I don't think the right is immune to this either. Obviously,
of course.
I think the left is far more radical on a wide scale, but I think it has more to do with social media algorithms than it does necessarily have to do with institutions pushing it. Because when you get on social media, we all know shock value is what sells. So you start saying something that's a little shocking, but not as extreme. And then these creators have to get more and more extreme in order to keep these views. And then these viewers only follow this specific set of ideas. So it just radicalizes so many people. So we're seeing this divide where it's like, if something were to happen to a liberal candidate, I wouldn't be surprised either, because this being radical is not something that the right's immune to, although the left is far more radical on average.
Well, they have the institutions.
Yeah.
They have Google. They have the corporate media. They have a lot of the institutions of learning or indoctrination, as I like to call them. But I was screaming about this 12 years ago, saying that the censorship is creating a situation where people are going to become more and more radicalized, not just on the left, but also on the right, especially when you censor their voices and you don't debate bad ideas.
Right.
When you can't stop bad ideas by countering them with good ideas, that's what happens under censorship. You have people that go to the darkest corners of the internet and become more radicalized. And that's why I have always been pro-free speech, because it's a perfect way to de-escalate situations. And I think all the censorship that we have endured created the current situation that we're in, which is not a good one. As of course, there's another post going around Twitter right now describing how when you type in why censorship is into Google, you get, quote, important. Why censorship is important in social media, why censorship is required, why censorship is important in schools, why censorship is good in schools, why censorship is justified, why censorship is important for media. And it's not. It's what dictators and despots use in order to destroy their critics and control all of the population. Again, censorship is one of the cruelest, one of the most evilest things that a society could put on its people. And truly, free speech is always countered with free kind of economic policies. And usually when you have freedom, you have economic prosperity. This is why we probably also have a lack of economic prosperity, because we have the destruction of speech, the destruction of people being able to figure out our problems and fix them. We can't do that openly because we're now living in a woke make-pretend world where there's ruling elites that now are smarter than you and have the right to decide what you can and cannot think about or even entertain. That's wild.
And you know something? I actually wonder every time somebody asks for, for someone else to be censored, because they say, oh, that is hate speech, that kind of speech shouldn't be allowed. What is the limit? Like, and according to you, who's the one that needs to decide that? In Venezuela, they approve a law that is, an anti-hate speech law. Mm-hmm. Who decides what is hate and what is not? Exactly. Because if I'm the one that says, okay, hate speech is if you say something about me. So you are basically telling people to hate me or something. I don't like that speech. Okay, you should be censored. What do you think is going to happen if governments are the ones that are actually promoting this? Obviously, they're going to censor the speech that goes against them. Yep. And we're seeing it here in the US, which is worrying, especially when you have. It's not even the politicians try. They're always going to try that. But it's the fact that you have people justifying it. To me, that is crazy.
Well, and then think about how they actually talk about Trump supporters. And again, for the audience's sake, I'm not one. But they will talk about Trump supporters as deplorables. They'll talk about them as domestic terrorists. They'll talk about them as stochastic terrorists, or Christian nationalists. All the rhetoric is so heightened. But then simultaneously, everything that they accuse Donald Trump of saying is actually out of context. If you actually look at the big claims that have convinced them that they're right in describing him as this like white nationalist, it's like, oh, there's good people on both sides. Well, actually, he says, except for the white nationalists, which should be condemned entirely. Then he also says they're not sending their best. They're sending their THEIR possessive. He's actually talking about like some of the people that are being sent here are bad people. It's obviously,
but I can say that, like, you know, because
that's what I'm saying.
unfortunately, here we are in a time where we pay attention to this identity politics. So you cannot talk about gay people unless you're gay. You cannot talk about abortion unless you're a woman. You cannot talk about, okay, I'm from another country. I'm sorry, but I don't want the people who destroy that country and the ones that are supporting Nicolás Maduro in Venezuela or the ones, you know, that are criminals in Mexico or any other country to come here. When you import something, whether it's a good a service or in this case a person, you want their best. You don't want their criminals. There's a bunch of people of a Venezuelan gang called El Tren de Aragua. They're the ones, you know, members of that gang. They're the ones that killed the girl in Georgia, the one that was studying nursing. They're the ones that raped and killed the 14 years old, no, 12, 14, I don't remember, the one in Texas. Like, they raped her, they tortured her, they killed her, you know, for like 2 hours or something like that. And it was
We just got to be careful with the rhetoric here because we're still on a family-friendly show here on a very censorious network that we're gently criticizing here. So just be careful with you said like 10 words already, Esteban. Gosh darn it.
I know every time I was like,
they did bad stuff. They did bad stuff.
To quote Tucker Carlson, he says that if you import the third world, then you become the third world. So
Exactly.
You know, we really need to think about that.
And that it's obviously true that there are some good people in the third world that you probably wouldn't mind becoming Americans. But it's also true that if you just open your borders wide, you're not going to get all good people, and that's a given. So going back to what I was saying about the Trump rhetoric, what he's actually saying there is they're sending their, THEIR, possessive, there, as in like they're bad people. But the media portrays it as THEY''RE. So they are like that. Like he's describing all Mexicans, all migrants as this. It's just it's a grammatical misread that has now psyoped half of this country into thinking that he genuinely believes that about an entire nation of people. It's just obviously absurd, or not even nation, a hemisphere. And I think that's really what we're up against. Is like you have a media, and to go back to your point about who describes or who decides what is hate speech. Well, the people in the media have used actual hate speech towards half of this country for years, so much so that we're accustomed to it, that we don't even talk about how messed up it is. But on the inverse, they're constantly taking everything out of context to try and portray us as believing something that we don't.
Well, all of their bad ideas are under the guise of compassion, and that's what gets me every time, because it's so easy to manipulate people under the guise of compassion. That's how they do it. That's how tyranny rolls in. It's hate speech, but really it's just controlled speech.
Well, and to play off of that, 6 feet social distancing. You got to wear your mask. But it's not about being a slave. It's about showing compassion for your fellow man.
You got to save grandma. Grandma's not going to be around if you don't do what you're told. Yep. And of course, that's the kind of new kind of dictatorship, the new kind of oppression that we're dealing with, all under the guise of we're here to help you. And those are the most dangerous words, especially from any kind of government official. But we're reaching a new point where I think social media companies are more influential than politicians, and I think they decide what people get to see, what people get to talk about, what people get to discuss, what issues are going to be trending, what issues are going to be dominating our conversations. And to add to the points of what we were just discussing earlier,